The story I'm about to tell you involves political intrigue, betrayal, divine intervention, and one of history's most dramatic falls from grace. It's the biblical book of 1 Samuel, and trust me, this ancient text reads like a modern thriller that would make Game of Thrones jealous. Picture this, an entire nation demanding their spiritual leader give them a king, even though their God explicitly warns them it's a terrible idea. What happens next is a masterclass in how power corrupts, how jealousy destroys, and how the most unlikely heroes emerge from the shadows. 1 Samuel opens in a world where Israel has no king. Instead, they're led by judges appointed by God, and the current leader is a priest named Eli. But here's where things get interesting. Eli has two sons who are supposed to inherit his position, but they're corrupt beyond belief. They're stealing offerings, abusing their power, and completely disrespecting the sacred duties they're meant to uphold. Enter Hannah, a woman desperate for a child. She's been barren for years, mocked by her husband's other wife, and emotionally devastated. In her desperation, she makes a deal with God that changes everything. She promises that if God gives her a son, she'll dedicate that child to divine service for his entire life. God answers her prayer, and Samuel is born. True to her word, Hannah brings young Samuel to Eli's temple when he's barely old enough to walk. Imagine dropping off your toddler at a religious boarding school, knowing you'll rarely see him again. Samuel grows up under Eli's guidance, and here's where the supernatural elements kick in. God starts speaking directly to this child, giving him prophecies that will reshape the nation. Samuel's first major prophecy is devastating. God tells him that Eli's family line will be cut off because of his son's wickedness. When Samuel reluctantly delivers this message, it establishes his credibility as a genuine prophet. Soon, everyone in Israel recognizes that Samuel has a direct line to the divine. As Samuel matures into Israel's spiritual leader, the nation faces a crisis. The Philistines, their longtime enemies, are growing stronger and more aggressive. In desperation, the Israelites do something incredibly foolish. They decide to take the Ark of the Covenant, their most sacred object, into battle as a good luck charm. The plan backfires spectacularly. Not only do they lose the battle, but the Philistines capture the Ark itself. Even worse, Eli's two corrupt sons die in the fighting. When Eli hears the news that the Ark has been captured, the shock literally kills him. He falls backward, breaks his neck, and dies on the spot. But here's where the story takes an almost comedic turn. The Philistines quickly discover that possessing the Ark is more curse than blessing. Wherever they take it, plagues break out, their idol Dagon keeps falling over and breaking, and people start developing painful tumors. After 7 months of supernatural harassment, they desperately send the Ark back to Israel with guilt offerings. Samuel uses this victory to rally the nation and establish his authority. He sets up a system of regular circuit preaching, traveling between cities to judge disputes and provide spiritual guidance. For years, this arrangement works perfectly. Samuel is respected, the nation is relatively peaceful, and God seems satisfied with the arrangement. Then everything changes. As Samuel ages, he makes the same mistake Eli made. He appoints his own sons as judges, and just like Eli's sons, they're corrupt. They take bribes, pervert justice, and abuse their positions for personal gain. The people of Israel have had enough of corrupt leadership, and they make a demand that shocks Samuel to his core. They want a king. Not just any king, but a king like all the other nations have. Samuel is personally offended by this request, seeing it as a rejection of his leadership. But when he prays about it, God gives him a surprising response. The people aren't rejecting Samuel, they're rejecting God himself as their king. God tells Samuel to give them exactly what they want, but first, warn them about what having a human king really means. Samuel delivers one of the most prophetic speeches in ancient literature, describing how kings will draft their sons for armies, tax their crops, take their daughters as servants, and generally make their lives miserable. The people don't care. They want a king anyway, and they want him to fight their battles for them. So God tells Samuel to find them a king, and the choice is surprising. Enter Saul, a young man from the tribe of Benjamin who's literally just looking for his father's lost donkeys. He's tall, handsome, and comes from a wealthy family, but he has no political ambitions whatsoever. When he can't find the donkeys, someone suggests he consult Samuel, the famous prophet, for guidance. The moment Samuel sees Saul, God confirms this is Israel's first king. Samuel anoints Saul in a private ceremony, then orchestrates a public selection process that appears random but is actually divinely guided. When Saul's name is drawn, he's so nervous about becoming king that he literally hides among the baggage. Initially, Saul is everything Israel could want in a king. He's humble, successful in battle, and seems to have God's favor. His first major victory comes when he defeats the Ammonites who were threatening an Israelite city. The victory is so decisive that the people want to execute anyone who had previously questioned Saul's leadership. But power begins to change Saul. The first crack in his character appears during a battle with the Philistines. Samuel has instructed Saul to wait 7 days for him to arrive and perform the pre-battle sacrifices. When Samuel is slightly late, Saul gets impatient and performs the religious ceremony himself, even though he's not a priest and has no authority to do so. When Samuel arrives and discovers what Saul has done, he delivers devastating news. Because of Saul's disobedience and presumption, his dynasty will not continue. God will choose someone else to be king after him. Saul's second major failure is even worse. God commands him to completely destroy the Amalekites, including all their livestock, as punishment for how they treated Israel during the Exodus from Egypt. Saul wins the battle but keeps the best animals alive, claiming he's saving them to sacrifice to God. When Samuel confronts him, Saul initially lies about what happened, then shifts blame to his soldiers. Samuel's response contains one of the most famous lines in the entire Bible: "Obedience is better than sacrifice." He then announces that God has rejected Saul as king. This is where the story introduces one of history's most famous figures. God sends Samuel to Bethlehem to anoint a new king from among Jesse's sons. Samuel expects God to choose the eldest, strongest, or most impressive son, but God surprises him again. God chooses David, the youngest son who's out tending sheep and is so unimportant that Jesse doesn't even bother calling him when Samuel arrives. David is just a teenager, but when Samuel anoints him, the Spirit of God comes upon him in power. Meanwhile, that same Spirit departs from Saul, and he begins experiencing what the text describes as an evil spirit that torments him with depression and paranoia. His servants suggest finding a skilled musician to soothe his troubled mind, and in one of literature's greatest ironies, they recommend David. So the future king begins his career in the palace as the current king's personal therapist and musician. David's music calms Saul's tormented spirit, and initially, Saul loves David like a son. He even makes David his armor-bearer, a position of great trust and honor. The dynamic between Saul and David shifts dramatically after David's famous victory over Goliath. When David volunteers to fight the Philistine giant that has terrorized both armies, Saul initially refuses, pointing out that David is just an untrained youth. But David's confidence, rooted in his faith and experience protecting sheep from lions and bears, convinces Saul to let him try. David's victory over Goliath using only a sling and stone becomes legendary, but it also creates a problem Saul never anticipated. The people begin celebrating David more than they celebrate their king. The women sing songs about Saul killing thousands but David killing tens of thousands. This is when Saul's jealousy begins consuming him. The young man who once soothed his troubled spirit now represents everything Saul fears losing. From this point forward, Saul becomes increasingly paranoid and violent, repeatedly trying to kill David even though David remains completely loyal. 1 Samuel ends with one of the most tragic scenes in ancient literature. Saul, desperate for guidance before a crucial battle, disguises himself and consults a medium to speak with Samuel's ghost. The dead prophet delivers one final, devastating prophecy: Saul and his sons will die in battle the next day, and David will become king. The prophecy proves accurate. Saul and 3 of his sons, including David's best friend Jonathan, die fighting the Philistines. Rather than be captured alive, Saul falls on his own sword, ending his reign in the same place it began, with a failure to trust God's timing and methods. 1 Samuel is ultimately a story about the corrupting nature of power, the importance of obedience over ritual, and how God's plans often unfold through the most unexpected people and circumstances.